Swim Things in Blue Springs, your one-stop shop for all things swim. Pools, spas, patio furniture, swimwear, and accessories. Visit them in Blue Springs or at www.swimthings.com.
I could go on and on. That's pretty much it. That's enough like to get people's mind around this. So just think about a double above knee amputee, except my prosthetics are again flesh and bone, and they're just kind of there. They're hanging out. And as long as things are going good, that's as bad as it gets. But if things become inflamed or I don't pretend to, be a doctor in neuropathy or anything like that. But in terms of experience, if there can be a negative shift in weather, if I can gain too much stress, so many factors play into this. That can grow into like temporary paralysis throughout my whole body, which is actually how I found out that I had Charcot-Marie-Tooth when I was 10. At Thanksgiving, my whole body just went limp, and it kind of stayed that way for a few days. Ended up spending a few weeks in Children's Hospital, Los Angeles, and that's really, surprise. Like that was the gift. That's how I found out.
How did you accept the diagnosis, especially at 10 years old?
For sure. That's a good question. I think part of it was accepting it in the terms of like I didn't really know what it was. So the doctors told my parents, but and I think this is like anyone in anyone with a family member who has like some type of developmental disability or just even physical disability needs can relate to this. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Western medicine and doctors, like, they have a place in this world and they do a lot of good. But when you go to doctors, a lot of times, they're literally practicing medicine. Like a lot of this stuff, like they're kind of finding out, like, oh, I read about something similar in medical school, but I also read about 10 other similar things. So, like, let's get to the bottom of this. And you can very easily become an experiment. You know what I'm saying? It's not like malice or anything like that, but my parents didn't want that to happen to me. Like they kind of knew what was going on, but it was a whole lot that they didn't understand and still don't understand, which is why there is no cure for, Charcot-Marie-Tooth. But my parents just really didn't want me to be put into a box. And the older I get, like I understand just how strong a mental box can be for everything else. And they didn't want me to get trapped into this mental box of what's possible for me because the doctor said so, what's possible for me because the internet said so, what's possible for me because of what other people dealing with this disease say is possible. And so even though I felt all this happening, right? I know that this doesn't work now, this doesn't work now. Um, it was just never something we talked about. They were pretty much just like, don't worry about it. They're pretty much, like, in some ways, like, just don't worry about it. And so, yeah, we never really had a conversation about like, this is what happened to you. It was just like, that was it, that was it. And I mean, like, again, obviously I knew that things had happened to me, and then like, now I'm back in the world. I can't swim anymore just because it gave me complications of swimmer's shoulder and dislocated shoulders. So I had to stop swimming at the age of 10 from 10 to 16, didn't swim at all, right? Most people would say those are the formative years. And now it's like, I'm the only one that didn't get burnt out. So I'm fresh, ready to rock. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, that's pretty much it. They didn't tell me. And even though I knew, we never talked about it. And when I would come home from school and I'd be like, man, I can't do this, or I should be able to do that. And if anyone has seen me, like, there's also that element where I don't really fit into the stigma of what disability looks like. Like I'm this unseen disability. So, number one, I automatically like was kind of graced a little bit of secrecy, but then I also take it to the next level, and I hid it. Like for a long time, it was something that I saw as a weakness, right? Like not being able to always tripping and falling. That's embarrassing, right? Childhood is embarrassing enough. Like having super skinny legs, not being able to wear shorts without drawing attention to your legs, like, come on, nobody wants to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard enough. I was already like an awkward looking kid. but you know, I thought so at least. So it was tough, man. But I just never told anyone. And when things would be hard, I would come home. I'll be like, man, there's no way this kid should be able to do that, and I can't do that. And if there was ever a life lesson, this is it. My parents would say, look, however hard it is now, or however good you are right now, as long as you keep practicing, 100% guarantee you will be better than you are currently. And that is, you know, I think that's one of those undeniable universal truths. Like, no telling if you'll go pro. No telling if you'll be the best in the class. No telling if, you know, no telling any of that stuff. No telling if you'll be the GOAT. That's for the people to decide. But like, if you keep practicing, you guaranteed will be better than you are right now. And just kind of with that, you know, I threw it in the back of my mind and I ignored it for years. Didn't tell anyone, you know, even when people would kind of highlight odd things about my body or ways that I move, I would just, you know, sweep it under the rug. And it served me a lot for a long time. You know, I think kind of like, even just like growing up as a Black person in America, like there are certain strengths and there's certain toughness that you have to generate, I think, just to like survive and operate effectively on a day-to-day basis. But at a certain point, it comes to where like, well, you know, how tough did I get in order to survive, and do I still need to be that tough now? You know what I'm saying? So at a certain point, I kind of came to that where it's like I've like disassociated myself with my body and my experience so much in order to, you know, fit in or in order to survive. It's like now I'm having a hard time even just loving me and appreciating me for who I actually am and what's actually going on, you know? So
It's something that I never, you know, I think we had always silently understood was that our presence on the pool deck was kind of a rarity. It was not something that was very common, having a Black swimmer in the pool and being coached by a Black coach. I mean, we went to nationals, and I'm sure just like I did, it was, you know, strange for you to walk around and see not a lot of faces on the deck that were like us. What was that like for you, you know, in your evolution as a coach, knowing that there were very few Black coaches on the deck?
That's a great question. Let's start with me coaching, period. That wasn't my goal, was to be a coach, to be honest with you. Um, but as I grew into the sport, I met other coaches who were other Black coaches and other Black swimmers, Chris Silva, um, Byron Davis, and some others along the way. I got to meet Jimmy Ellis a few times. You and Michael Normit swam against each other at nationals, and Jimmy and I were standing right next to each other, you know, talking about the same subject. It was awkward. In my whole entire career, I've always fought to break the ice as to being one of the, you know, one of the rising coaches in this country. And that's kind of my burning fire. I've worked with a lot of really good swimmers from all over the racial spectrum. And back then it was odd, and people still sit down and talk to me about it. I talked to a young lady this morning about the same thing we're talking about right now, who interviewed on a different format. So, but watching you, we went to nationals, and I saw you and several young ladies and men who were Black who swam that. I mean, it was kind of neat to see. You know, I tell the story of us going to nationals, and you swam the same lane as Janet Evans. And you know where I'm going with this. You
I
want to
know
tell
where
it?
you're going with it.
You
Go
want
ahead,
to want
finish
to?
telling the story. I'm not embarrassed anymore.
No, you tell the story. I want you to tell the story.
Well, I just remember that I almost couldn't function the rest of the day because I mean Janet was my big time idol. You know, watching her at the Olympics and everything, and you know, like a lot of people say now, you know, you get to swim in the same warm up lane as Michael Phelps. It was one of those moments where I kind of realized where I was. I mean, I was always the type of swimmer who was just like, okay, this is just the meet and go out and swim and everything. But to get in a warm up pool and to have Janet Evans like say, she almost runs into you or something like that. And she says, sorry about that. And I don't have the words to express what I want to say. And I remember I told you that Janet Evans was in my lane, and I felt like a 12-year-old kid. And I was like, what, 16, 15,
Yeah,
16?
15 years
And,
old. Yeah.
and I was just like, I was so over the moon about the fact that all these swimming idols that I had watched on TV, I was in the pool with them. And it wasn't, that I said, oh, I belong here, I am in the same pool as Janet Evans. I was just going crazy. And I
Mhm.
think for both of us, I think it was just that kind of thing. I'm sure you even were, rubbing shoulders with coaches that you idolized at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. At that time, as a coach, I didn't try to look at myself as the black coach on deck. I wanted to be the coach. I wanted to be Jeff's coach. I wanted to be whoever I was coaching's coach. And I did meet the Richard Quicks of the world and the Eddie Reeses of the world, and I think I lost. And the coaches on deck, which just inspired me to do even more in the sport of swimming.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. And just like you said, I didn't think of myself as a black swimmer, but I guess it's still part of us that we're on deck and we want to prove that we belong there. And I think we have to feel
Exactly.
like we work a little bit harder to just show people that we
Yep.
do.
Yes, indeed. The meets that I go to now, I put a little leg into the sport now. But we do have that conversation with other coaches. Why aren't there more black swimmers? Or here in California, it's pretty diverse, but in other parts of the country, you go to swim meets with 1,000 kids, and there's one black coach and 0 black swimmers.
Right.
And the cool thing is when parents and families meet me, they're not sure what they're getting until they watch us swim or they pick my brain and figure out I know what I'm talking about. So
What makes you so good at butterfly?
I think it's my kick. I've always had pretty good underwaters in high school. They weren't like amazing, but they were like, I guess, like above average. And then when I came here, we really trained for our underwaters. Like we do a lot of well sets, a lot of kicking, and I love kicking. Like I always do kicking. I love to do like underwaters. Sometimes I do like underwater sets by myself just because I really like it, and it helps me so much. And so I think that probably is like the biggest factor in why my fly is so good, just because of like the underwater part. Because I can like kick underwater, but I can kick underwater like pretty fast, but it's not like I'm not trying that hard. I don't know if that's a good explanation, but like it's very, it comes like natural almost.
Yeah, and everyone knows underwaters are almost or not if the most important part of
Yeah.
swimming a race. But in high school, I'm sure you were very heavily recruited. How did you handle all of the attention and pressure? Like, what was the pressure that you had?
At first I liked it because I did like having all that attention. And then I think after a while it got kind of stressful because I was just kind of like talking to, because I'm like a nice person. I don't like turning anybody down. So I was just kind of like talking to like any school who kind of reached out to me. And then when I started to like realize that I really wanted to go to Georgia, schools were starting to like come out to me. There was a few coaches who came down to watch me some practice, and then a lot more wanted to come and like stay at my house or wanted to come go out to dinner or like do something like that. And I was kind of like, okay, I already know I want to go to Georgia, so I don't want to waste these people's time. So I committed early. I think I committed in like the end of May, like right before Olympic trials. So it was relieving after.
What was so special that you knew you wanted to go to Georgia?
Well, when I visited after the junior nationals, just the whole guys team was just so nice. I just really, really liked them. I loved the campus, and the climate, because like in Michigan it's so cold there, and at that time the meet was in December, and I think it was like in the 60s, like the mid 60s in Georgia, and I was like, wow, I just really want to go here. Like I hate the cold weather. And then the coaches were super nice, and I love how much like long course that we train here, and they told me that, and I just really that I enjoyed that part. So that was probably one of the biggest factors.
Right. Well, we're talking to you in June 2020 when the climate around the country is a big topic of conversation. And to tie it all into swimming, I mean, you're one of the top African American athletes in the pool right now. Someone who is being in the conversation of making the Olympic team, which, you know, when I was swimming was a very hot topic of when it's going to happen, and it has happened. And you know, what does it mean for you to be that kind of role model to a lot of the younger kids who may be looking up to you and saying, there's someone who looks like me doing very well in this sport? And how does that help you, you know, looking out into to regular society as well?
Yeah, I think it helps actually being a lot of people's role models, because there's so many days that I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, or like I just don't want to train like maybe as hard as I know that I should, or do like the extra step. So having like, or knowing that I'm a role model, a lot of people, I think motivates me a lot. So yeah.
And obviously, you know, people are going to be looking at you when you get to your senior year, trying to get your third SEC title, and also, you know, that big goal of making the Olympic team. Do you put pressure on yourself to make all of that happen, or are you able to block that out?
Um, it kind of depends what it is. Like for like next year, like for SECs or NCAAs, I don't. I try not to think about that when I'm training, or I try not to think about it too far in advance, because I do get really bad anxiety, and like that could actually, it like affects me sometimes if I overthink. So I try not to overthink, because a lot of times if I do overthink before like a swim meet, I won't swim as well because I'm so stressed out. So I'll try to like relax. I don't like to. I make goals for myself, but I try not to make them too specific. So if I don't hit those goals, I'm not too hard on myself or anything. But yeah. So
Well, that's very important. I mean, one of the biggest phrases I remember is "fun swimming is fast swimming," and if you're
mhm.
putting a lot of pressure on yourself, it's not fun, and then you don't go fast.
Yeah, I used to make a lot of goals for myself, but I kind of stopped. I started making goals for like practice, and then I saw like the results in the meet, so I just kind of kept doing that.